In this video, I'm gonna be going over drones in relation to aerial photography. So I'm gonna go over what a drone is, a few things to look for in a drone if you're thinking about buying one, and finally, what my personal recommendation is when it comes to drones in the world of adventure photography. So let's start from the top. What is a drone? Now, a drone, as you probably know, is essentially a small robotic device that you control with a controller that has a small camera mounted on it. You can use these to fly to all different elevations to get a variety of different angles and shots that you can't see just from hanging out on the ground. Another great reason to get a drone is to use them for scouting. So if you want to see what a mountain range looks like from over the top of the hill as opposed to where you're standing right now, you can get out your drone, fly it above the hill in less than 5 minutes and know exactly if it's worth hiking the 30 minutes to get to the top of that mountain or not. So those are the main uses of drones. As a new photographer, I'd highly recommend getting a drone. I know it can be an overwhelming expense, especially when you're looking at camera bodies, lenses, filters, all the stuff that goes into photography, but drones can actually get really cheap. And as you're gonna find out, even the lowest grade drones can add a ton of value to your photography. So let's go ahead and get into what I personally think you should look for when it comes to drones. And this is 4 different components. The first component you're gonna wanna look for is size. And this, I believe, is the most important part of a drone. The smaller the drone is, the less room in your camera bag you're gonna have to fill, and you can take it essentially anywhere. There's some drones, for example, the Mavic Mini, that can literally fit in the size of your palm and you can put in your pocket or even in your coat pocket. So these types of drones are what I like to thrive in when it comes to shooting with them, because you could take them so many places. They're extremely light, portable, and they don't take up a lot of room. Many of the higher grade drones can get to be almost a foot long in size, and that doesn't even include the controller. So when you're carrying around something that big and that heavy, taking up half your camera bag, a lot of times it doesn't even feel worth it. So I generally like to aim for the smaller drones I can. The next thing you're gonna wanna look for in drones is the air time. So how long can that drone stay in the air? So most drones nowadays can stay in the air for about 20 to 30 minutes on a single battery. I know they're starting to push it with some of the upper end drones, but for a lot of the smaller drones you're probably gonna be looking for, that's generally the range you're gonna wanna be in. So it's good advice to generally carry around multiple batteries with you if you're gonna be shooting multiple different perspectives. So for example, at the start of your hike, maybe you'll launch a drone, then maybe at the end of the hike, you'll launch your drone. And then you might even launch your drone one more time if you didn't have enough time to get the shot or the light suddenly starts hitting good. So I'd say like 3 batteries is generally what we wanna look for to come alongside your drone when you're purchasing one. The next thing you're gonna wanna look for is the image quality, which as a photographer is pretty important. However, this does come with a caveat. Usually the smaller drones don't have as good of image quality as the larger drones. So it's a bit of a give and a take. If you wanna spend more money and get a bigger drone, you're gonna get higher quality images. But if you can work with a smaller quality drone and smaller quality images that you're mainly posting on social media, then image quality isn't too big of an issue. One thing to note with drones, however, is that you can and should buy ND filters, as we talked about in the filter section, that can fit over your drone. So this is going to help you get a variety of different lighting situations accomplished. And trust me, it's just gonna make your shots look a lot better, especially if you start dabbling with video, which we'll get into a bit later. Finally, you're gonna wanna look into reliability. So you're gonna wanna look for a drone that's gonna hold up, because drones, for the most part, take a decent amount of beatings. No matter how good of a pilot you are, it's probably gonna get flown in the wind into something. You're probably gonna crash land it a little bit hard. There's gonna be dust particles flying around when it lifts off the ground. You generally wanna look for a brand that has a reputation. And I know I said in the start of this video that I'm not gonna be recommending any brands in particular. However, I would say that DJI is one of the top brands for drone reliability. It's almost got a monopoly over the entire photography drone industry. So I'd look into that brand for something that you're going to be shooting with. All right, so now that you know the 4 main things to look for when purchasing a drone, let's talk about my recommendation. So personally, when you first start photography, I'd recommend getting a very small drone, something along the lines of a DJI Mavic Mini. And these can cost like 300 to 500 bucks. If you get an older model, it's probably even cheaper. These things can literally fit in the size of your palm. And the image quality isn't amazing. That's not why you get these drones. You get them because you can take them anywhere and you can do risky stuff with them. So if you're flying around with a $200-300 drone, you're gonna be much more confident when you fly it through an arch over the sea, as opposed to a $2,000 drone. You're not gonna wanna do risky stuff and you're not gonna wanna get the crazier shots with them. So even though you're sacrificing image quality, I'd recommend getting a smaller drone with less image quality that you're willing to do riskier things with. You can take more places, and honestly, you could use more often. And as a starting photographer, getting those reps in, those drone flights in, is going to get your skill set to the next level. So when you finally get to the point where you want to start printing photos, then you could look into upgrading into one of the more expensive drones. Which leads me to my next point. When should you go from a small drone to a middle level drone like the DJI Air? And that would be when you're gonna start printing photos. So if you know you have a reliable place that people are going to be buying your drone photos, I'd recommend getting a mid-grade or even a professional level drone, just so you can print them big enough so that you're not gonna have that reduction in resolution and image quality. That's really the only reason you're gonna wanna get a more expensive drone, is if you're printing. Otherwise, I'd just stick with the really small ones, because most photos are gonna look great on social media, especially if you're using ND filters in conjunction with those smaller drones. So get a smaller drone, unless you're planning on printing, then look into getting the bigger, clunkier ones, the more expensive ones, once you have a lot of experience. So that's my recommendation. Finally, I wanted to end this video with a warning. So, for the most part, in a lot of places in the United States and Europe, a lot of drone flying and Asia actually, a lot of places to fly drones are illegal. So a lot of this is flying at your own discretion. One thing you should know is that probably 80% of the images you see online of drone photography were taken in illegal spots. Technically, in most places, you're supposed to have a drone pilot's license to even be able to fly the drone. So a lot of drone photography is a little bit in a gray area. So I would like to say, use your own discretion as to when to fly. Personally, I'm not gonna fly in a national park because it's not allowed where there's tons of people around. However, if you're in a state park, the rules are, you're not really sure what they are, there's no one around, there's no animals you're gonna be harming, I would say go ahead and get the shot. The same with like forests and other areas. There's a lot of places you're not supposed to fly drones, but I would highly recommend not doing it in airports or national parks. Those are the two I'd avoid. Cities, technically you're not allowed to fly them in cities because you're flying over cars and people. But if you have a bit of experience and you know what you're doing, I'd say go for it, as long as you can know that you're taking a risk that might get you a small fine if you get caught. So that's my recommendation with drones. Most places are not going to be allowed to fly them. So if you are going to be getting one, just know that you're probably going to be having to risk it if you're going to want to get serious about being a drone flyer. All right, let's go ahead and hop into the next video.